right. Good morning, Musical. Good morning, Detroit. Let me hear you. Come on. Let's get the party started. It's early. I got my coffee on. Do you? Right on. Musical. Your theater, my theater, all of our theaters. It has been operating for 94 continuous years. It has presented more performing artists of world renown than perhaps any theater in America. Right? It looks like a theater. It feels like a theater. Yeah, go ahead. You can have 94 years, more performer. Right, it's a big deal. It's about culture. Right? It's a theater, right? No, it feels like a theater. Or is it? What is it exactly? I think there's something else going on here. Let's go back to Matilda Dodge Wilson. You saw her in the video. We're talking like way back at the turn of the 20th century, born across the river, came across, went to Gorseland Secretary School, went to work for the Dodge brothers, married John Dodge. John Dodge dies in 1921. His brother Horace dies 6 months later, and she becomes the wealthiest lady in America. Right, so what does she do? She gets busy. Now, she goes to Europe, she gets remarried, and she starts touring all these different theaters. And what she's seeing is not just architecture, but she's seeing ideas and the way to do things. And she gets it in her head, I'm going to build the greatest theater on the planet Earth in my hometown of Detroit. But she does something very unusual. She builds it, and it is first class. I mean, even the drinking fountains had chilled water in them in 1928. But she makes open access. That was the difference. That means African Americans coming up from the South were sitting directly next to the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So were the Italians and the Germans and the Poles, all moving in at the same time, all mixing it up here. Perhaps that's reason one why we have such a prolific past, because we're programming African American artists. You have your Count Basie's next to your W.C. Fields, next to your Enrico Caruso's. Music hall constantly evolved from that point. Guy who had my job was Florence Ziegfeld for the first 15 years. Then comes the Ford Sunday evening hour, right? FDR used to talk at 7 o'clock on Sundays, and at 8 o'clock, directly after his speech, came the DSO on the music hall stage for 10 years. Then came Cinerama. That's technology in play, right? Cinerama, we had a screen that wrapped from that balcony all the way around to that balcony, because movies were shot with 3 cameras and we projected them with 3 projectors. Then came Michigan Opera Theater. Until they built their own place, this was their home. We created it here, it was born here, it became famous here, then they created their own place. Then what happened? Tyler Perry came in and he wrote a little character called Medea, and that ended up becoming a big deal. Right, with no one left to turn, they brought in me. Now, Now, I was born and raised here in Detroit. I grew up on Steel between Tireman and Joy, and then moved to Farmington, then graduated from Michigan State, and then I went to New York City to pursue my career. Was that a U of M, or was that? Green. Sweet. So, right, I'm doing Broadway, but then I found Broadway was very limiting. Right, I can only do the UK, I can only do the United States. Maybe we'd go to Japan with some subtitles, but if I did symphonic music and I did dance performances, well, I could travel the world. And I did. As a production manager, a tour manager, an executive director, 50 countries, all 50 states. Absorbing, looking, watching. I found myself a gap in the market. Isn't that what we're all trying to do? Find a gap in the market. Nobody was importing these unbelievable foreign attractions into the United States. I opened an agency, started selling shows all over the United States, Moscow Circus, Dance Cuba, Ballets Africaines, you name it, from all over the world. So one of those days, it's like, okay, hey, would you consider coming back to Detroit and apply some of that world stuff to our town? And I said, sure, but on one condition. I'm not here to produce a Bonnie Raitt concert. I'll produce a Bonnie Raitt concert. The point is, what's the connection to the community? Now, this is 2006. Detroit was a drag, right? Kind of hitting some difficult times. And I said, listen, the problem with Detroit and its metropolitan area is you're all living in these silos. You're all fragmented. Maybe 200,000 in your little mini micro demo. You can't get anywhere with those kind of numbers. We got to break down the walls of those silos. We got to start bringing communities together so we can build skyscrapers. And the performing arts has a role to play. And they were like, oh, do tell. I said, we've always had immigration. I'm going back to Matilda and the turn of the 20th century, right? Black Americans, Italian Americans, Poles, Germans. Here we are, turn of the 21st century, and we find ourselves with the largest Iraqi population outside the country of Iraq. There's 550,000 Arab Americans living right over to our left. Why don't we invite the orchestra to be our resident orchestra? And the National Arab Orchestra is our resident orchestra to this day. And what happened? We engaged that community. We started doing Bollywood productions, Indian comedians. What happened? 450,000 first and second generation Indians came downtown. We engaged them. We continued doing Tyler Perry plays, but many, many more. You get it. Black, white, green, blue, Italian, German, Indian, Arab. We're breaking down the silos, and we're packaging it in a 2-hour really fun program. You think you're coming down and see like a 2-hour really fun program, and you are. I'm going to entertain you. But pardon me if I shove a little content in there, because my thought is, once you come to a Bollywood show, you're going to walk away with kind of a 101 understanding of Indian culture. Now go sell them something. Right? Your product and service. You just opened up an entire market of 450,000 people because you took a minute to sort of understand your customer. Let's hear it, sure. We operate the music hall more like a community center than a theater. It's about Detroit. I said to the trustees of the music hall, I can't make music hall work unless Detroit works. So really what we're working on here is Detroit. And we're going to do it in a really fun way. You'll see. But by doing these diversity programs, these multicultural programmings, what we're really doing is breaking down the walls of the silos. You'll see people will start doing commerce outside the theater because now they know each other. When you have a great idea, then this was a great idea. We started with a $3 million budget. We're now kissing $15 million a year. We have proven our concept. And what happens when you prove your concept? You expand. Thank you.